challenging time for United States. In the process of making a rhetoric of communist challenge, they destroyed the social fabric of United States. At time, any person was declared as communist, and like witch hunting in medieval Europe, they created the same scenario that agencies were and law enforcement agencies and people of United States were actually hunting communists. Anybody who is blamed as communist was penalized, they were persecuted, they were punished, and their whole family was destroyed so that there should be no sign of communism in American society. That was to continue the war preparation and war taxation. And word enter into uh, a, a war that was much longer than the First and Second World War, but it was not an actual war. It was the position of Cold War. And during Cold War, both superpowers they polarized the whole world. Half of the world was with them, and half of the world was with USSR, almost. And some countries who wanted to be independent, they were not allowed to do so because they have to address their local problems. So they were again looking towards superpowers to have some power, though they don't want to have strategic alliance with United States or USSR. Cold War continued in 1950s. There was an assumption that this century is going to be American century. And in 1950, when President Eisenhower came to power, he was a conqueror of Second World War, a war hero, and he got Republican ticket and fought election. Communist, the menace against communism was on rise, and McCarthyism was at the peak. And Americans were so obsessed with any threat from Soviet Union that they, even the administration, were so obsessed that they took every decision to, in haste, to curb that communist threat. The example, maybe a very good example, is that of invasion on Lebanon, though it was not materialized because the local commander was wise enough and he refused to undertake that operation. But Americans launched their armies there to stop any threat to uh, free our world and any threat to Israel. In Cold War period, there were two basic motives uh, of United States. One is to make world a safer place for Americans and to avoid any threat for United States from all over the world. And in order to ensure that security of United States, they claimed, and as they proclaimed from the very beginning, some American values. And those values were based on liberalism, that is, right of self-determination, human rights, rather civil rights. Civil rights is a better word for human rights. Civil rights, right of self-determination, and free market economy. These were the American values. And as the first 10 amendments of United States were on the inclusion of basic human rights in American Constitution. Um, those were considered to be ideal for the whole world. But those values were again exploited in the name of fostering American values, where the American interest was threatened. Only the value which was imposed was American military might, and that American military might asserted number of nations in very odd way, and whatever administration could did, they used CIA, they used the local agencies of different countries to topple the government, to kill the leaders of different countries because they were considered to be the threat to United States interest, not the United States physically, but to the interest of United States. And one of the interests of United States was that there should be less allies of Soviet Union, so that can be isolated. But Soviet Union was working well, and they have their alliance, and their question was, and their dealing with their satellite state was so coercive and so closed that it was very hard to make liberate them from Soviet interest. So the challenge continued. In 1950, there was a Korean War, and after Korean War, 38 Parallel was declared as the containment point because Americans realized that uh, they cannot undo Soviet Union as a superpower. So what maximum can do they can do that was stoppage of or containing communism at some point. And when War was fought, then that was a major challenge for the United States, and it was fought on with the support of United UN Security Council resolution. Korean War was not the end of conflict, but it was mm, it was a time when uh, Americans were very confident that they can do everything. They can control the world, at least the free world. So optimism was very high, and diplomacy was on rise. Um, Cooperation and coordination agreements were signed, and ultimately in 1955 and 56, 54 and 55, SITO and SENDO, two agreements were signed to make alliance with those countries which could encircle USSR, its allies, and which can protect the American interests in the wake of Cold War. These alliances were included the countries in Asia Pacific, in Gulf, and in South Asia and Australia. Uh, and in this way, Americans instituted an encirclement of Soviet Union. During that period, um, Americans were sure about uh, that communism of USSR and socialism of China were monolithic. In 1949, when there was a socialist revolution in China, then Americans did everything. They spent a lot of money to stop that. But when they could not make it, and it was an indigenous revolution, then they supported Chiang Kai-shek government to make a refuge in Formosa, that is Taiwan, practically, uh, and then they recognize it as the main China, the original China and Chinese government, and they offered that seat to the government of Taiwan, and they deprived the whole China. A lot of population and People's Republic of China was isolated. But that gave USSR an opportunity to offer cooperation to China, and that cooperation led to close alliance. So the West was of the opinion that socialism of China and USSR communism were monolithic, and so they were against both countries. And in containment, China was also included. In 1960s, it appeared that there was some breakup in USSR and China partnership that was due to disagreement of Chinese with the Soviets on the account of development and strategic alliance. Chinese were more focused on, they wanted to have focus on technology and development, and they did not want to enter into any strategic alliance. But USSR was having other designs. So Apparently, that period was very crucial in American foreign policy because Americans wanted to contain communism and they were apparently successful by dividing Koreas. But that was for the limited period. Later, that communism was extended to Vietnam, another country or important country of Indochina. And in 1960s, in Lyndon B. Johnson era, Americans have to enter into Vietnam. That was totally a miscalculation. Miscalculation on the part of American strategic decision makers. They thought that Americans can do everything. But keeping the military might and being the superpower and having the best weaponry available at their disposal and best uh, scientific development at their disposal, though they were matched by USSR in terms of nuclear power and in terms of missile technology. Both were running after each other. Americans made ballistic missiles, Russian made the same. Then intercontinental ballistic missiles, Russian reciprocated the same. So that arms race was continued, and for reducing that arms race, they were having engagement with each other in the form of Stark One and Two negotiations and agreements signed later. But the War rivalry was there, and Americans were having this perception that they can stop and they can do everything. That perception was compromised in Vietnam. In Vietnam, it is hard to defeat any nation on their home ground. It is equally true for the cricket match as well. So Americans they went into Vietnam and then they declared again and again they wanted to come with the respect and they could not come till the time of President Nixon. And but so-called coming out with respect was again visible to the world that the day Americans pulled out from Vietnam, there was again communist government in Vietnam. So they could not end up communism. They could not block communism in Vietnam. And the only thing that was earned from Vietnam was a disgrace to American power. And that exposed the American power and that showed that there was a limit to American power and that was detrimental to Americans' national interest. But it happened. Second impact of Vietnam was indigenous response in US since the people were forced to join army and mostly the lower classes and blacks, middle class and lower classes in US were recruited in armies to fight in Vietnam along with the blacks. Then um, there was a reaction. And mothers organization formed there that American coffins coming are basically of the poor people. So these two things exposed American power and the strength of American nation as well. Next turning point was revolution, two major events in 79. One major event was the Iranian Revolution, Islamic Revolution of Iran. And second, the USSR invasion on Afghanistan. Both were the turning point in American foreign policy. They were focusing on South Asia, but it was somewhere in periphery of American foreign policy. They wanted to have India as their ally to contain China. But since India refused to be a part of Cold War designs, and Pakistan was the better choice because Pakistan was having a paper army and they wanted to develop their army in the wake of 48 India-Pakistan war and Indian threats of aggression to Pakistan. So they wanted to have a strong army so that they should have minimum deterrence against India. And that's why they signed decision makers signed SEATO and CENTO. But it was conceived by the people of Pakistan that that military and economic aid under these SEATO and CENTO were only against the communism, not against India. But what policymakers perceived that if they would be having a strong army, if that is made against communism, that strong army would deter India to attack on Pakistan. And another problem was that Kashmir dispute. And since dispute continued to be between India and Pakistan and that threatened the basic security of the region, so Pakistan wanted to have a superpower alliance to influence India to resolve that dispute. But in overall position, South Asia remain on the periphery of US policy. But in 1979, with the with USSR invasion on Afghanistan, South Asia became on the forefront in US policy because Afghanistan has been a buffer state during even the British Raj. British government was here, British colonial power was here, and then Bolshevik Revolution when in 1917 there was Bolshevik Revolution. Uh, British Raj was also uh, felt threatened because of Soviet Union, but Afghanistan remained a buffer state between the two nations, two big powers. UK was at that time a big power, Britain was a big power, and their physical presence in India extended their borders to Afghanistan. Uh, but after independence, 1947, Afghanistan was having very close relations with India, and they remained hostile towards Pakistan in their foreign policy. That was the only country that rejected Pakistan's membership to United Nations, voted against Pakistan membership to the United Nations due to their own designs to have claim on Pakistani territory, especially the Pakhtun territory. So this was the time when US revived its alliance with Pakistan that was under challenge due to President Lyndon B. Johnson's warning to Pakistan and arms embargo on Pakistan under in 1965 war and American refusal to do anything despite the famous Nixon tilt towards Pakistan, and the US could not stop dismemberment of Pakistan in 1971. So people of Pakistan were not in favor of United States. But during that period, Pakistan offered major services in the form of China opening. United States in 1970 thought that since China and USSR having disagreement, so this is the time for China opening. And ironically, President Nixon, who was one of the person involved in McCarthyism, he was supporter of McCarthy law, and that was proposed by three people headed by Senator McCarthy. Nixon was part of that team. Later, he built his career on the basis of, and before that, he built his career on anti-communist sentiments. Even he won the seat of American Senate by defeating a lady whom he established as the communist or communist supporter in the elections. And later, he fought his election on the same anti-communist sentiments. But when he became in White House, he realized that this is the time where American uh, power is declining. And it was a time of a war in Vietnam, and American limitations came to surface. And Americans wanted to pull out, but they could not because of their position that if they would come out, their superpower status would be ridiculed by the whole world. So what he thought that he wanted to have a China opening. And that agreement, that Communique signed by China and US in Beijing, that was facilitated by Pakistan government. And the Secretary of State at that time, Henry Kissinger, declared and praised Pakistani administration and said that the United States is the nation of United States is indebted to Pakistani services for them. But in 1974, when India did atomic blast, they started pursuing Pakistan not to match that. And since Pakistan, from the very beginning, is following the policy of Me Too, that what India did, they have to reciprocate it because they are having India centric foreign policy due to the threat from India, uh, threat of survival from India. So the United States tried to stop Pakistan from starting their nuclear program, and that purchase of atomic reactor from uh, France, that agreement was ultimately cancelled out due to American pressure. And Pakistan-US relations were at the lowest ebb when President Carter requested for the clemency not to hang a prime minister, elected prime minister Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, and that was turned down by Pakistani military dictator Ziaul Haq. So Pakistan-US relations were deteriorated to the lowest. And the lowest point came when American embassy was burned in Islamabad by the students of Quaid-e-Azam University, Islamabad. So, but in 1979, USSR invasion on Afghanistan turned the table, totally changed the scenario. Jimmy Carter invited the military dictator to Washington, and then Pakistan became the frontline state, and Zaul Haq immediately agreed to all offered by the United States, except the amount of economic aid offered by the United States. He declared it as a peanut. But Pakistan became a frontline state because General Zaul Haq was in search of legitimacy at international level for his military government, and he wanted to prolong his military rule. That was very easy under that policy to enter into American war against USSR under the Cold War designs. And Iran was again a major threat for the United States because pro American Iranian monarchy was exiled, and then a nation was occupied by a theocratic regime, and that theocratic regime was considered to be a major threat for Israel. US Middle East policy was having two major points. One was the security of Israel, and second was oil, access to oil reserves. And for that purpose, Americans supported every monarch, compromising on all American values. They supported every dictator, compromising on all liberal values. In South Asia, we are talking about that. Then again, US and USSR entered into a proxy war. The previous one was fought in Vietnam. But this time, USSR proved to be a Vietnam for USSR. Afghanistan proved to be Vietnam for USSR, and they lost all their energy, strategic power, military power, and their economy came down to the level that ultimately in 1989, USSR was dismembered. And a number of new states came into existence with the help of United States and due to the policies of President Gorbachev of USSR, Perestroika, and Glasnost. 1989 was another start of another era in US foreign policy that is called the post Cold War era. And since the dismemberment of USSR was considered to be the triumph of capitalism, capitalism as an ideology. So the thesis like End of History presented by Fukuyama and Clash of Civilization by Samuel P. Huntington were presented, and Americans were celebrating triumph of capitalism in the form of New World Order presented by senior President Bush Senior. Though he did not use that title, but since we are having two President Bush, and both were very important because both assumed the power at the time of turn of history for the United States and for the world as well. So United States emerged as the sole superpower, and they proclaimed a world order that was again to establish American hegemony. And throughout 90s, Americans remain unchallenged power. But war in Afghanistan was having a hangover for the United States, and their commitments to this region, they ended in 1986 with the sign of Geneva Accord, through which the USSR withdrew their armies from Afghanistan, uh, and Americans also washed their hands from here. But the aftermath of the war and the uh, groups of Afghanistan, tribal politics of Afghanistan, and warlord in Afghanistan did not allow to establish American, uh, did not allow to establish a civil order in Afghanistan. And there was challenge to uh, American existence, as American foreign policy was focused on making China, uh, making the world safe for American. So they again have to look into Afghanistan uh, due to the terrorist threat and continuing war. But Americans tried to avoid their involvement. They focused on number of issues. The major one was the major one was uh, Oslo Accord in Middle East. In 1993, President Clinton initiated talks between Palestinian and Israeli sides, and that resulted in Oslo Accord. And the first motive of that was Israeli security. At the same time, they continued to increase their trade and assert their power through economic power. But 1990s was the period where American military might was there, and that was not compromised. But the world was rising in terms of economy, and there became many power centers in terms of economy. Japan established a very strong economy under the accord signed by the first asymmetrical accord signed with the United States, in which United States in post Second World War period and in during Second World War and after Second World War, Japan was colonized by United States on the account to establish democracy in Japan, and they signed an asymmetrical um, um, defense pact with Japan, and that gave Japan an opportunity to take rise in terms of economy because their defense responsibility was taken by the United States. And in return, United States got the opportunity to station their armies on the doorstep of USSR to encircle it. But Japan rise took a rise, and it became an economic power even more stronger than the United States. Second challenge was coming from European Union. European Union, in its initial form, was an agreement of oil and steel cooperation, but in 1993 they declared themselves. They developed during the period of 40 years, though they remain ally of United States, and they were part of NATO, a military alliance of the Western world, headed by the United States. But at the same time, they continued for the European uh, rise. They wanted to emerge as an independent power because they thought that international politics was the privilege of Europe, and they should not be the satellite of United States. So 1993, when European Union emerged, that was actually the alliance of an organization which was a regional organization, but under the functionalism, they integrated politically to take joint decisions, keeping their sovereignty. All the states kept their sovereignty, but they emerged as a political alliance to take joint decisions for development, economic cooperation, and even a defense and joint foreign policy. So this was another challenge for United States. But they continued to promote WTO. That was previously an agreement for cooperation, but again it was established in WTO that remained instrumental to bring globalization. And that globalization was again a mode to control the economy of the world, and entered and used all the developing countries as their market. Truth has rise of new century. That was a major challenge for the United States. I hope my time is not over. I have to speak for 10 minutes more and I will end. Um, rise of uh, 21st century was a major challenge to United States. It was 9/11, we all know, and then 9/11 was a threat to America practically. It was the first time when Twin Towers were blown. And previously, all these terrorist activities were to be faced by those countries which were the frontline state of United States. Pakistan was having practice of terrorist activity every week, fortnightly, losses of a lot of human life, but it was the first time United States faced that. President of United States at that time, George W. Bush Jr., took this opportunity to claim the major challenge, the challenging, to treat the major challenger of American security, that is the radical Islam. And that was resulted in Islamophobia all over the world. And without having any investigations and entering into any negotiation with the terrorist groups, or which they claim that they were instrumental in making that attack on American land. uh, Afghanistan became the target, and Americans physically entered under the alliance of NATO in Afghanistan. 21st century is marked with the American effort to come to, again, on strategic front, sole superpower. And they were not ready to accept that there was no threat to them. They were not coming out of the Cold War mindset, and they tried to regain their strategic position and sole military power status. And during that period, they opened two new fronts to restore their position as the military superpower. One is invasion on Afghanistan, and secondly, invasion on Afghanistan, on Iraq. And in Iraq, they declared that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. That claim proved futile just within a year. But Americans, instead of apologizing, that nation continued to colonize that, invaded them, and even they destroyed their social fabric and physical terrain and generated Abu Ghraib type captive um, facilities, and then they violated all human rights, even committed acute type of war crimes, both in Afghanistan and Iraq, just to restore its position as the sole military power. And they thought that Iraq would be easy prey and then Afghanistan would be easy prey, but that was totally a miscalculation. President Obama in 2014 promised to pull out from Afghanistan. In 2010, they pulled out from Iraq, apparently, but still they have presence in Iraq and still they have presence in Afghanistan. And again, they wanted to pull out with respect, but that is not visible in the near future. Despite the peace process is going on, ultimately they have to compromise to sit on negotiation table with their arch rival Taliban in Afghanistan, and they requested their allied nations, Pakistan and Qatar, for mediation, and that was done, and then they came enter into an alliance with an agreement with the Taliban. Same is the case with Iraq. They still station their armies and they are having in control of number of air bases, and they are stationed there, but their own security is on threat. During that period in 19 from the start of 21st century, politics in Middle East was very crucial for US. Middle East is the area which remain always on the forefront of US foreign policy because of the presence of oil and because of the security of Israel. Since it is claimed and estimated that 3% of the Jews in United States, they control the whole American economy and decision making. And that did not allow US to implement their values, American values as they claim. And all the American politics in Middle East remained against the American values. They supported all monarchs because they were their instruments to control oil reserves, and they apparently tried to support democracy. And Condoleezza Rice in 2005, in her address to Cairo University, declared that we will support democracy. But with the rise of democracy in 2011, Arabs with the rise of Arab Spring, establishment of government of Muslim Brotherhood, that was alarming for Americans, and then they rolled back democracy in Egypt, and the whole process of Arab Spring got sore. And again, they remained their presence and fueled Iran-Saudi rivalry, which was there on the basis of Iranian revolution that was theocratic state and based on Shia version of Islam. And Saudis, the American allies, they were scared of a threat from Iranian dominance that was not actually religious, it was political, but that was used by the Americans to uh, create their bloc and to maintain their hegemony in Middle East and to protect Israel from the joint alliance of Arabs against them. They controlled the GCC, Gulf Cooperation Organization countries, and this was the American strategy during 2001 to 10 and 2015. With the dawn of Mr. Trump in office, that was a period of rise of populism in the whole world, especially in the United States. And Mr. Trump presented the leader of as became as the leader of populism. And in that uh, in that process, Mr. Trump openly came out to defend Israel, and he wanted to have more money, more oil, and more power from Middle East, and to ensure the protection of Israel. During that period, they invaded on Libya. Mr. Obama said that there would be no boot on Syrian soil. But as the Arab Spring rose, the rival groups came out, and there was civil war in Syria. And USSR, in the form of that was the successor of USSR was Russia, and Russia wanted to protect its only naval base in Mediterranean that was situated in Syria, and Americans came physically in Syrian war. They entered into Syrian war, and during that process, they cooperated with Iran even to kill their rivals. So American foreign policy remained focused on Middle East because of the oil politics and security of Israel. And you see that now Americans are, they wanted to ensure the security of Israel, and apparently the peace process in Middle East, they are focusing on recognition of Israel by all their Arab neighbors, which were actually the rivals, and they were actually the basic threat towards the survival of Israel, and almost all of them fought wars with Israel, attacked on Israel for one time or the other, and Israel faced that threat with the help of Americans very successfully. And we have seen the signature of Abraham Accord, where the UAE, Israel was recognized through that accord, recognition by Sudan and Bahrain, and now they have supported a deal of restoration of diplomatic relations between Saudi Arabia and Qatar. And next, we will listen that there is a recognition of Israel by the Qatar as well. So American politics is. I will conclude with this sentence that Americans are still living in a Cold War world, and they are not ready to accept that they are living in a changed world. And instead of rising as a, instead of focusing on world development and supporting development and humanity and implementing American basic values, of human rights and self determination and liberty for all and prosperity. They again started conflicts in the world just to keep their hegemony on. And during that course, during Cold War and even in post Cold War era and in post 9/11 era, the whole American foreign policy was based on establishing its hegemony and kill all the rivals. And latest US-China war on trade is actually reflecting that. In post-COVID period, in COVID period, there was limitation to American strength was exposed, but still Americans are focused on their hegemony, and American war against China, trade war is evidence of that. With the rise of inaugural of new president in office on 20th January, that would state, but American president would say in the State of Union address to the American Parliament, that would be actually the practical depiction of his foreign policy. Till then, we can see American foreign policy in the light what I have mentioned. Now you are all open to question. I'm here to answer. Thank you very much for your patience.